What's up, everybody? The first official teasers for the Chapter 2 version of OG have dropped. It's happening, people! Chapter 2 Remix! What? Let's break down all the teasers and make some wild and crazy speculations about what we might see. And if you didn't play back then, I'll also share what I think you can expect based on my experience playing the Spy and Flood seasons. And we're throwing in some classic B-roll too. Let's get into it. To quickly recap, the roadmap from April showed a Chapter 2 OG of Seasons 1, 2, and 3. Epic also teased it a year ago too. I forget what they said exactly, but it was to the tune of, hey, OG was a lot of fun, want to do it again next year? And now a bunch of creators were sent a Chapter 2 remix package containing a bunch of pins, a cassette tape of remixed music from back then, and some other stuff. The pins confirm that Remix will be at least the first 3 seasons of Chapter 2 in some form. I say at least because, well, the title implies that some things might change, right? They even threw in a Walkman. Heck, little Timmy doesn't even know how to use a computer these days. Ain't no way he has a boombox. The Rift Butterfly on the box is a nice touch too. And those are 2 of the pins, so let's start there. The boombox is an interesting choice since it was only in a loophole for a month in Season 7 of Chapter 1. But it also does confirm that next season will not be a carbon copy of the past. And I'm pretty sure everybody hated that item. No wonder why. Look at this thing. Oh, imagine that in Zero Build Endgame. It's going to be tough to carry that in solos and probably duos, but expect to run into it in trios and squads. I run a lot of matches in those modes, and that is where you see a ton of the gimmick items always being used. Next pin is the Rift Butterfly. Another interesting choice. We first saw it in the in-between in Season 6, then we became one of them to close a bunch of portals so the Rock could get encased in that spire thingy, and then he ended up in Gotham. But that's a story for another day. We saw the Rift Butterfly again at the end of Chapter 2, but it died.
The time for games is over.
And they were in the Vibin season as well. But the Rift Butterflies were not a part of Chapter 2 Seasons 1 through 3. I mean, that's more of the remix thing, which is fine. As long as the map is the same and most of the loot is faithful to those seasons, I think we'll be alright with that, right? Speaking of the map, there is a Misty Meadow Clock Tower pin.
Save the clock tower.
I don't know about you, but I am pumped to land at Misty again. But don't drop at the tower. Most of the loot is ground floor there, if I remember correctly. If you drop that side of the POI, drop across the street. Personally, I prefer dropping on the other side of the POI. There's a lot more loot over there, and the NPCs were on that side. Next pin is the Boogie Bomb. I love how the 2 item pins are things that players hate, the boogies and the boombox. They were in the same season together, no idea how that played out back then, but we just had 6 months of gimmick loadouts, and even in Reload, which is kinda OG, everyone hard peeks snipers and uses the pumpkin launcher anyway, so I feel like a boogie box combo is right up the player base's alley these days. Hey, it is a video game after all, right? Anyways, we have 3 pins hinting at Battle Pass skins. One is Ripley, maybe it'll be Peely? Do we have a Slurp version of him? I don't think we do. The second could be Tiantina or Jules, maybe even Ocean. I would be surprised if it was Ocean. Cool skin, but it wasn't very popular. And she was overshadowed by Faye, Jules, and Aquaman that season. The third skin pin is Meowscles with Midas's scarred eye. The speculation there is of course a mashup. Probably in a tux too, like Agent Peely. Maybe Meowdus? And is he in charge of the agency in Remix now? One of the other pins is the Shadow Hand from the Spy season. That pin along with Ripley and the Shark are replicas of the Employee season pins. That is probably why they have the chapter and season on them, by the way. So those probably just tease the seasons in Remix. But we could see Shadow lose the war to Ghost this time. And will we get to pick Shadow or Ghost for the skins in the Remix Battle Pass? That would be pretty cool. And does the Shark pin also tease a different fate for Midas? He did supposedly die going into the Flood season. Will it be Meowdus this time? And why do I say supposedly? The rule of fiction is a character is never truly dead unless you see the body. And even then, you never know.
Hamlet 2? Doesn't everybody die at the end of the first one?
Alright, so these are all the teasers, so what to expect for the gameplay? First up, the biggest issue is gonna be mobility. It was bad back then. Like, it's kinda crazy what little mobility we had. Our best option were launch pads. Back then, there were traps. You drop a floor tile, boom, you pad out. And we can't forget about boats. We were so desperate for mobility, we drove them over land. That's nuts. We also had crash pads. We had the Choppa for Flying Spud season. We had Choppa for the Spy and the Flood seasons. Cars were added late into the Flood season. We did have the Shockwave Launcher Mythic and the Grappler Mythic, but no regular versions. There were Impulse Grenades, but no Bouncers. So you basically feared the storm and you were Forrest Gumping it constantly to the zone. Dropping Edge of Map made you question your life choices if you didn't have health and mats. Someone was always camping that edge of zone waiting. Except Dirty Docks. The Dirty Grotto Rotate got you to zone if you played it right. Nothing was more fun than flying out of there with the mythic minigun while listening to the Apocalypse Now theme. Dun, 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 dun. So yeah, I would expect a slower pace, definitely not like the last 6 months, that's for sure. And get to know the rotation paths. Chapter 2 players will have an advantage in that department. For example, if you drop Misty, the rotation path is gonna be into Lazy Lake, 100% of the time. One other issue with Storms was health. We have a lot more now, and I expect that to continue in Remix. I'm pretty sure it was like that in OG. That said, I still think carrying health or shields is probably mandatory, and like Chapter 1 OG, you definitely want to run with bunkers or bubbles in zero build. The weapon part of the loophole from Seasons 1 to 3 was alright. It'll be nice to go back to hit scan. I think most players prefer it. Personally, I don't think it's that hard to get the timing down on projectiles. Once you know where the bullet's gonna go and what the drop is, the rest is figuring out when to pull the trigger. Is it really that much different than a shotgun fight where you're waiting for your opponent to drop into your reticle? You know, it's the same thing. The burst AR was reduced to a 2 burst during the flood season. Not sure what they'll do there. Will we get to 3? Will we get to 2? But for the most part, most of Chapter 2's early seasons pool is the same as Chapter 1. And I'll definitely be making loadout videos for those, so watch out for them. So there we go, peeps. We have some cool Battle Pass skins coming, Misty definitely coming back, we have shocks, and the typical Fortnite tradition of annoying items like the boogies and boombox. But will there be choppas? Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like. Next video coming right up.